The Galactic Council made the same mistake they had been making for 300 years. They looked at humans and saw nothing special. According to their official records, Earth's people were ranked 7th out of 12 recognized intelligence levels. Good enough for mining asteroids and growing food, but nowhere near advanced enough to build real warships. Captain Park Min-ho watched the construction crews through thick glass windows as they put the finishing touches on the final ship of the fleet. He had been part of this secret project for 10 years, ever since Earth's leaders first decided they needed something special, something the aliens wouldn't expect. The vessel in front of him looked wrong to anyone who understood spaceship design. Where normal ships had smooth metal hulls, this one rippled with dark channels that seemed to absorb light. Instead of regular engines, it had something else entirely, a captured piece of a dead star contained in a cage of pure energy. Engineer Kim Suja joined him at the window, her tablet showing the construction report. "The 25th ship is complete," she said quietly. "All systems are running perfectly. Each one has enough power to crack open a small moon." Minho nodded slowly. The aliens still thought humans were using the same basic technology they had used for centuries, simple fusion engines and metal bullets fired at high speed. They had no idea what was really being built in the dark spaces between Mars and Jupiter. Admiral Cho Daeho entered the observation room. He was an older man with gray hair, but his eyes were sharp and determined. "The Federation thinks we're still playing with toys," he said. "They're about to learn how wrong they are." The truth was, humanity had taken a completely different path from every other species in the galaxy. While the Vorthon Empire built bigger and bigger weapons, and the Crystal Collective focused on their mind powers, humans had looked at the universe itself and asked a simple question. What if we could use the power of stars? It had taken 30 years of secret research and building. 30 years of humanity's best scientists working in hidden facilities, powered by solar energy that the aliens thought was just for growing crops. They had solved problems that the galaxy's oldest and smartest species had never even thought to try. Engineer Suja pulled up another screen on her tablet. "The stellar cores are stable. We've managed to capture and contain the heart of 25 different dead stars. The energy output is..." She paused. "Beyond anything we've seen before." Captain Minho remembered when the project had first begun. The aliens had laughed at Earth's request for better technology. They had been told that humans weren't advanced enough to handle real weapons. That stung, but it also motivated them. If the galaxy wouldn't share its secrets, humanity would find its own. The ships hanging in space didn't just look different. They worked differently too. Instead of traveling through normal space like every other vessel in the galaxy, these ships could fold space around themselves. They could appear anywhere, anytime, without warning. Admiral Daeho walked closer to the window, placing his hand against the glass. 25 ships, that's all we get for our first move. Against species that have thousands of vessels, we have 25. "But sir," Suja said, "each of our ships has the power that would take them 100 vessels to match." The captain smiled grimly. "The Vorthons think they're the strongest military in the galaxy. The Crystal Collective believes they're the most advanced. Everyone forgets about us little humans with our little problems." He turned from the window. "Let them forget a little while longer." Inside each ship, the contained stellar core pulsed with barely controlled energy. The power source wasn't just fuel. It was a weapon, a shield, and an engine all at once. It was technology so far beyond what the galaxy expected from humans that most species wouldn't believe it was possible. The Federation's last report on human military capability was 2 years old. It described Earth's fleet as adequate for local system defense and no threat to neighboring powers. That report would soon become history's most dangerous mistake. As the final checks were completed and the last ship was declared ready for action, the 3 humans stood in comfortable silence. They knew what was coming next. Somewhere out there, an alien species would make the mistake of attacking a human colony, and when they did, they would discover that humanity had been busy while the galaxy wasn't watching. 25 ships powered by the hearts of dead stars. 25 vessels that could rewrite the rules of space warfare. The galaxy thought humans were weak and harmless. The galaxy was about to learn just how wrong they could be. The Vorthan Empire had raided human colonies 17 times in the past 50 years. Each time they expected the same thing. A few small human ships would come out to fight, get destroyed easily, and then the colony would surrender. It was almost boring how simple these raids had become. This time felt different only because Human Colony 7 was farther from Earth than previous targets. Warmaster Kethvar commanded the most powerful ship in the Vorthon fleet, the Eternal Conquest. Its weapons could turn a city into glass, and its shields could stop anything the humans had ever built. Drop from hyperspace, the Warmaster ordered. His ship and 5 others appeared in the colony's system, ready for another easy victory. The human settlement sat on a small planet, probably filled with families and workers who couldn't fight back. But something was wrong. The space around the colony was empty. No human defense ships waited for them. No warning signals came from the planet. "Where are their defenders?" asked Sub-Commander Thek. "They always send ships when we arrive." Kethvar studied the displays with growing concern. In every previous raid, human vessels had appeared within minutes, small ships with weak weapons, but they always came. The silence felt threatening. "Scan the area," he ordered. "Find me something to shoot at." The sensors found nothing. No human ships hiding behind the planet, no defense stations. Nothing but empty space and a quiet colony that didn't seem to know it was under attack. Then reality twisted. The first sign was a dark spot that appeared in space. Not like a ship arriving, but like the space itself was being bent. The spot grew larger, and suddenly a vessel emerged from nowhere. Not through hyperspace travel like every other ship in the galaxy, but as if it had simply folded space around itself. The ship was unlike anything in the Vorthan database. Its hull looked wrong, covered in dark channels that seemed to drink light. Energy patterns moved across its surface like living things, and from its center came a glow that reminded Kethvar of staring into a star. "What is that thing?" whispered. The sensor operator. Commander Lee Borum stood on the bridge of the human Defiance, the first of the Supernova fleet. She had waited 3 months for this moment. The Vorthons had picked the wrong colony to attack this time. "All systems ready," reported her weapons officer, a young man named Chang Myong. "Target the lead ship," Lee ordered. "Show them what we've learned." The weapon that fired wasn't like anything used in galactic warfare. Instead of energy beams or metal projectiles, the human Defiance released a stream of pure stellar matter, the actual substance of star cores held together by forces the Vorthans couldn't understand. The beam moved across space at a speed that made light seem slow. When it hit the Eternal Conquest, the Vorthan shields didn't just fail, they seemed to disappear. The ship's armor didn't melt, it ceased to exist. In 2 seconds, the most feared warship in the Vorthan fleet became expanding gas and energy. Other Vorthan ships fired everything they had at the human vessel. Plasma cannons that could melt mountains hit the human Defiance and simply vanished into its dark hull. The ship didn't even seem to notice the attack. Commander Lee turned to her tactical officer. "Finish them." What followed wasn't a battle. The remaining 5 Vorthon ships lasted 17 seconds. Each one was touched by the stellar beam and dissolved into nothing. The weapons that had terrorized human colonies for decades were useless against technology that used the power of dying stars. Only one Vorthon survived. Communications officer Veltak was in an escape pod when his ship died. His equipment recorded everything: the impossible ship that appeared from folded space, the weapon that turned mighty warships into plasma, the shield that ate energy blasts like a hungry animal. With shaking hands, he sent a message to Vorthan Command. "Fleet destroyed. Human technology beyond our understanding. They are not what we thought. They are so much more. What are these humans?" The message traveled through the galactic communication network. Within hours, every major species knew what had happened. The weak little humans, the ones everyone ignored, had just destroyed the most powerful raid fleet in the galaxy without taking a single hit. In the aftermath, Human Colony 7 continued its normal day. The colonists didn't even know they had been attacked. The battle lasted 17 seconds and left no trace except for expanding clouds of gas where the Vorthan ships used to be. The Boer galaxy had just learned its first lesson about the new humanity. There would be many more lessons to come, and each one would be written in the light of dead stars and the silence of space where proud alien fleets used to fly. The news traveled faster than any ship. Within 6 hours, every government in the galaxy knew about the Vorthan fleet's complete destruction. The message was simple but terrifying. 6 major warships had been wiped out by a single human vessel in less than 20 seconds. The Galactic Federation Council called an emergency meeting for the first time in 30 years. Representatives from 43 different species gathered in the Great Hall on the capital world of Centauri Prime. The air buzzed with fear and confusion. Ambassador Han Yuna sat quietly at the human table, watching the aliens argue among themselves. She was a small woman with kind eyes, but today she felt the weight of her entire species on her shoulders. For years, she had endured their insults and dismissive attitudes. Today would be different. Chancellor Xerix of the Crystal Collective spoke first, his mental voice filling the room with urgency. This changes everything. The Vorthons were supposed to be unstoppable. Their ships could level planets. And yet, said Prime Speaker Gulak of the Mantis Federation, a single human vessel destroyed 6 of them without taking damage. How is this possible? All eyes turned to Han Yuna. She stood slowly, feeling 200 alien gazes focused on her. For a moment, the hall was completely silent. You want to know how? She asked, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. For 300 years, you've treated us like children. You gave us the worst planets to live on. You sold us your oldest, most useless technology. You laughed when we asked for better weapons to defend ourselves. Senator Vec of the Hegemony waved a dismissive claw. You were not ready for advanced technology. Your species lacked the mental capacity to handle real weapons. Han smiled coldly. Mental capacity? Do you know what we did with your oldest, most useless technology? We studied it. We took it apart. We learned every secret you thought was too complex for our simple human minds. The Crystal Collective's representative projected growing anxiety. But stellar weapons? Dimensional folding drives? These are beyond even our most advanced theories. Beyond your theories, Han agreed. But not beyond human innovation. While you all relied on the same old ideas your ancestors used, we took a different path. We learned from the stars themselves. She touched a control on her wrist. The lights in the Great Hall dimmed, and a 3-dimensional image appeared above the center table. It showed a human ship, but like nothing the Federation had ever seen. Dark channels covered its hull, and at its core burned something that looked like a captured star. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Several aliens backed away from the image as if it might explode. You see? Han continued. You made one big mistake. You assumed we would keep trying to copy your technology. Instead, we went looking for power sources you never imagined. We found ways to contain and direct the energy of dying stars. We learned to fold space-time itself. At that moment, warning alarms began to sound. The huge windows of the council chamber showed stars outside, but 3 of those stars were moving and getting larger. They weren't stars. They were human ships. The Supernova vessels, New Sol, Zhongju Rising, and Busan's Hope, had silently appeared around Centauri Prime. Their stellar cores made them glow like small suns against the black of space. Each ship was easily visible from the planet's surface, impossible to miss. Panic filled the chamber. Security officers shouted orders. Several representatives tried to run, but Han Yuna remained perfectly calm, watching the chaos with satisfaction. Please sit down, she said. Her quiet voice somehow cut through all the noise. My ships aren't here to fight. They're here to make a point. The aliens slowly returned to their seats, all staring at her with new fear and respect. The point is simple, she continued. The old galaxy is dead. The galaxy where humans were weak and ignored. where we said please and thank you for scraps of technology. That galaxy ended when our first stellar beam fired. Chancellor Xerix of the Crystal Collective projected a mixture of fear and curiosity. What do you want from us now? Han looked around the room, making eye contact with as many aliens as possible. We want what you never offered us. True partnership, equal treatment, respect. The galaxy has two choices: adapt to the new reality or be replaced by it. Outside the windows, the three human ships remained perfectly still. They didn't need to do anything threatening. Their very presence was enough. The most powerful species in the galaxy all sat in one room, and humanity had just demonstrated that they could reach them whenever they wanted. The age of human subjugation was over. The age of human dominance had begun, and every species in the galaxy would have to decide how they wanted to face this new reality. The strongest fleets in known space couldn't stop 25 ships powered by dying stars. The old order was crumbling, and from its ashes, humanity would reshape the galaxy in their image. The Kesh hegemony had ruled the southern galaxy for 1,000 years. They were known throughout space as the most violent and ruthless species. Beings who cracked open planets just to get at the metals inside. When they heard about the human ships with star-powered weapons, they didn't feel fear. They felt anger. War Master Kethvel commanded the largest battle fleet ever assembled. 500 ships, including 20 planet crackers, vessels designed to split worlds apart. The humans had 25 ships. It seemed like an easy victory. These humans hide behind tricks, Kethvel growled to his officers. We will show them what real power looks like. The Kesh fleet arrived at the neutral zone where humans often traveled between colonies. It was the perfect place for a battle, open space with nowhere to hide. The War Master expected the humans to run. Instead, they were waiting. Captain Ryu, Jiwan stood on the bridge of the Starbreaker, looking at the enemy fleet through the viewscreen. The Kesh had brought everything they had, ships big enough to destroy entire worlds. But size didn't matter anymore. The age of big ships beating small ships was over. 500 against 25, said her weapons officer Park Jinwoo. They really think numbers still matter. Let them think that, Ryu replied calmly. Officer Kim, are we ready? All ships report ready, answered communications officer Kim Sun-hee. The stellar cores are at full power. The Kesh fleet moved forward in their traditional attack formation. Their planet crackers led the way, followed by hundreds of smaller warships. They had fought this way for centuries, overwhelming enemies with pure firepower and numbers. War Master Kethvel felt confident. Target the human ships. Fire everything at once. A wave of energy beams, plasma bolts, and physical projectiles flew across space toward the human fleet. It was enough firepower to melt a moon, but when the attacks reached the human ships, something impossible happened. The weapons simply disappeared, not blocked by shields, not deflected away. They vanished into the dark hull channels like water soaking into sand. The human ships didn't even slow down. Impossible, whispered the Kesh tactical officer. Their shields ate our weapons. Captain Ryu smiled grimly. Execute Protocol Supernova. What happened next changed space warfare forever. The 25 human ships didn't charge forward or turn to run. Instead, they simply vanished, not with hyperspace jumps like every other species used, but by folding the space around them. Reality bent, twisted, and suddenly the human ships were inside the Kesh formation, appearing between and around the enemy vessels. The Kesh had prepared for many things. They had shields against energy weapons, armor against projectiles, ECM, systems to jam enemy electronics. They had never prepared for ships that could appear in the middle of their fleet without traveling through the space between. Fire! Fire at everything! Kethvel screamed. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes. The human ships moved like living things through folded space. One moment they were in front of a Kesh dreadnought. The next they were behind a planet cracker. They fired beams of pure stellar matter that didn't just destroy ships, they erased them from existence. But that wasn't the worst part. As the battle progressed, the human ships began to do something even more terrifying. They opened holes in reality itself, dimensional void weapons. The humans weren't just destroying Kesh ships, they were banishing them to empty spaces between dimensions. Ships that were hit by these weapons didn't explode. They just stopped existing in the real universe. Captain Ryu watched her tactical display as enemy contacts disappeared one by one. Not destroyed markers, gone markers. Wiped from reality itself. "The big one in the center," she ordered. "The planet cracker. Show them what we think of ships that break worlds apart." The Starbreaker fired its main weapon. A beam of condensed star core energy hit the Kesh flagship. For one moment, the massive ship seemed to expand. Then it collapsed into a tiny point of light and vanished, taking part of space-time with it. In 4 minutes, it was over. 500 Kesh ships had become empty space and expanding energy clouds. The survivors were too few to count and too shocked to fight. One Kesh communications officer, floating in an escape pod, transmitted a message to his homeworld. The humans don't just have better weapons. They've learned to rewrite the laws of physics. They don't destroy things. They make them unexist. The message spread throughout the galaxy. Every species that heard it felt the same cold terror. Humanity hadn't just become stronger. They had become something beyond natural law, something that could reach into the basic rules of the universe and change them. The Kesh hegemony, feared for 1,000 years, was finished. Their homeworld sent immediate surrender messages. Other species began to do the same. The galaxy was learning its most important lesson: never make humanity desperate enough to innovate. Because when they didn't just find better answers, they changed the questions themselves. The war ended not with a final battle, but with silence. One by one, the great powers of the galaxy sent messages of surrender to Earth. The Crystal Collective came first, their mental pleas for mercy echoing across space, then the Mantis Federation, offering everything they had in exchange for peace. Even the proud Altarian Empire, the oldest civilization in known space, bowed their heads and begged humanity to stop. Admiral Cho Daeho stood on the bridge of the flagship Final Dawn, watching alien ambassadors arrive through his viewports. Their ships kept a respectful distance. Nobody wanted to get too close to the vessels powered by dying stars. He had dreamed of this moment for years, but now that it was here, he felt strangely empty. 17 surrender messages so far, reported Communications Officer Lee Minji. The hegemony worlds are offering tribute. The Federation wants to negotiate. Everyone's scared. The door opened and Engineer Kim Suja entered, looking tired. She had barely slept since the fleet's first battle. "The stellar cores are stable. All ships ready for whatever comes next." Daeho nodded. For 300 years, humanity had been pushed around by these same species. Called weak, denied advanced technology, forced to live on the worst planets while the aliens kept the good worlds for themselves. And now they all wanted to be friends. The first ambassador to arrive was from the Vorthan Empire, or what was left of it. Once the galaxy's greatest military power, they now had fewer than 50 ships. The rest had been turned to plasma by human weapons. Ambassador Velkorth trembled as he transmitted his message. "The Vorthan Empire formally surrenders to the Terran forces. We offer complete submission and beg for mercy." More messages followed. Species that had controlled the galaxy for millennia now offered their homeworlds as tribute. They promised to share all their technology, all their resources, everything they had denied humanity for centuries. Engineer Suja joined the Admiral at the viewing window. "Having second thoughts?" she asked quietly. "No," Daeho said firmly. "Do you remember when we asked the Federation for better shields to protect our colonies? They said we weren't advanced enough to handle real technology. And when we asked the Crystal Collective for help with their mind science," Suja added, "they said our brains were too simple." "The Vorthans laughed when we requested stronger weapons," Daeho continued. "They said we should stick to farming and mining. Now those same species were begging for their lives. The farming humans had built ships powered by stars. The simple-brained humans had learned to fold space and time. The weak humans had created weapons that erased things from existence itself. Captain Park Minho entered the bridge carrying a data pad. The new government structure is ready. The Terran Union will replace the old Federation. But sir, I have to ask, are we really offering them equal partnership? Deho turned from the window. Equal partnership. After all this, we're still better than they were. He smiled grimly. But it will be true equality. No more junior species. No more advanced races looking down on primitives. Everyone gets the same voice. It was a generous offer, more generous than humanity had any reason to make. The aliens had treated humans like dirt for centuries. Now humanity could have enslaved them all, made them serve as humans had been forced to serve. But that wasn't the human way. The alien species accepted quickly. They had no choice. Earth's 25 ships had proven they could destroy entire fleets without taking damage. They could appear anywhere, attack anything, and disappear before anyone could respond. As the months passed, the new galactic order took shape. Humans did take the best planets. It was only fair after centuries of getting the worst ones. They did control the most advanced technology. They had earned it by building stellar weapons from nothing. But they also kept their promise. Aliens who accepted the new way of life were treated fairly. Some species tried to rebel. The draconian clans thought their ancient honor would protect them. The Azure Confederacy believed their old treaties still mattered. They learned quickly that the age of old rules was over. When your ships can be erased from reality itself, honor and treaties become meaningless. Engineer Suja looked at the reports coming in from across the galaxy. 70% of all species have joined the Union. The others are too small to matter. Admiral Deho nodded. The contained stars within the ship's core pulsed with barely controlled energy, reminding everyone of the power that made this new peace possible. They underestimated us for the last time, he said. For centuries we were told we were weak, that we weren't smart enough, strong enough, advanced enough. They made one mistake. They gave us time to prove them wrong. The galaxy had learned its lesson written in starlight and sealed with power no one had imagined possible. Never underestimate humanity's ability to adapt. Never assume the species you look down on will stay beneath you forever. And most importantly, never push humans so hard that they decide to change the universe itself. The age of human dominance had begun, and the stars themselves testified to what could happen when you underestimated Earth's children for too long.